This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Rabbi Glatstein in Chanukah. Usually we learn Masechta Brachos, but this morning we're going to examine something very, very interesting about Chanukah. The Gemara tells us in Masechta Shabbos, Daf Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, very well-known Gemara. We'll go through it very quickly. My Chanukah. What exactly is Chanukah? The Tana Rabbanon, the rabbis told B'Chav Hei Kislev on the 25th day of Kislev, Yom the Chanukah Tamanya. There are 8 days of Chanukah. Delay Lemispad behind, or Delay Hasanos behind. We don't eulogize. We don't fast. Shek Shenichnasu Yevanim LaHeichal. When the Yevanim entered the Heichal, Timu Kol Hashmanim Shebeheichal. They defiled all the oil in the Heichal. Shegavra Malchus Beis Chashmonoi. And when the house of the Chashmonoim prevailed, V'natzchum, and they were victorious, Badku, they searched, V'laymatzu ala pach echad shel shemen. They only found one jug of oil, Shahaya Munach b'chaysamish shel Kohen Gadol, that was placed with the signet of the Kohen Gadol. V'layhaya bayela lahadlik yom echad. They only had enough oil for one day. Nasa v'yineis, a miracle happened, V'hedliku mimenu shmayna yamim. And it lit, it burned for 8 days. Okay? Now this is what we're going to examine. Look at the next line. If I were to ask you, what is Chanukah? Yeah, what are the mitzvos of Chanukah? What would you say? First and foremost, you would say lahadlik ner Chanukah. You light the menorah. The Gemara doesn't mention one word about lighting the menorah, right? L'shana acheres, the next year, and there's a discussion in halacha that Tzitz Eliezer has a tshuva. Why the next year? Why didn't they do it that year? But in any event, kavam, they established these days va'asam yamim taivim. They made it yamtiv to do what? Behalel, to say halel, uvahida, and to say al hanisim in Shmon Esrei. By the way, I saw in a kuntras from Rabbi Felder in Lakewood, people say, oh, al hanisim, if you miss it, you don't have to say over the Shmon Esrei. No. Chanukah was established to do two things, halal and al hanisim. If you're going to miss al hanisim, you're not doing Chanukah. You're missing Chanukah. So you may not have to say over Shmon Esrei, but you miss Chanukah. So, it's like going, you go to California to go to Disneyland, and when you come back, they ask you, what do you do? Nothing. So it's true, you went, but you didn't fulfill what you wanted to do. No, Birchas Hamazon is Rishus. Al Hanisim Birchas Hamazon is Rishus. Some even say not to say it. Our minhag is we do say it. But in Birchas Hamazon it's Rishus. But it's very interesting. The Gemara says, what is Chanukah? What do you do on Chanukah? Nothing about dreidel, nothing about chocolate coins, yeah? But all kidding aside, the main mitzvah of Chanukah is not mentioned. Okay, it's all it says is B'halal v'hoida. What happened to the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah? I mean, if you ask most people, that would probably be the first thing on their mind. And the Gemara doesn't say one word about it. Later on, you have a machlokes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel about how you light. Now, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, we're not talking about Shammai and Hillel. Shammai and Hillel lived in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel started after the temple was destroyed, but also while the temple was still standing. But it's very interesting. The Gemara makes no mention of Hadlakas Ner Chanukah.
The mice of the Yevanim happened how much before
210 years before the Churban Bayesheni.
It's about 100 years before Hillel. Hillel was about 100 years before the Hillel.
Okay. But the machlokes of up or down, do you go up, is Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. So that was even after that. Now, in the Al Hanisim, what do we say? We say, V'kavu shmainas yimei Chanukah elu, lahaydos ulahalel l'shimcha agadol. Do we say one word in Al Hanisim? V'kavu shmainas yimei Chanukah, lahadlik ner shel Chanukah? Not one word. What happened? Yeah, they did. That may be referring to when they found the oil, they lit the menorah. But what about the mitzvah, right? We're talking about what was the kviyos. V'kavu shmainas yimei Chanukah elu, lahaydos ulahalel. No mention of lighting the menorah. This is really a pella dikadiyah. This is a question. Nobody talks about it. Yeah. The Maral talks about, why in Al Hanisim do we talk about the miracle of finding, in Al Hanisim we talk about the military victory. And in the Gemara we talk about finding the oil. Fine. But let's talk about what was the Yom Tov enacted for. Both in the Al Hanisim and in the Gemara there is no mention that they were kaiveya Chanukah to light the menorah. Now look in the Rambam. Very interesting lashon. The Rambam says in Hilchos Chanukah, Parag Gimel, Halacha Gimel, Umipnei zeh, because of this, Hiskinu Chachamim Shaba'osei Hadar, the Chachamim of that generation enacted, Sheyu Shmoinas Hayamim Ha'elu, that these 8 days, Shetchilasan, that begin Milel Chamisha Ve'esem Kislev, on the 25th day of Kislev. Okay, the Rambam's telling us what the Chachamim of that generation did. That they enacted, it should be Yimei Simcha. So that alone is a big chiddush. The Rambam is saying a big chiddush that in Chanukah there's a mitzvah of Simcha. Not like all the other Rishonim. All other Rishonim said there's no mitzvah of Simcha in Chanukah. The Rambam says that the days of Chanukah are Yimei Simcha. Rav Moshe Chevroni, one of the Rashivas on Chevron, he writes that, where did the Rambam get that there's a mitzvah of Simcha in Chanukah? So he wants to say that because in order to say Hallel, you need to have Simcha. So if there's a mitzvah of Hallel on Chanukah, that means they were kaiveya it for Simcha in order to say the Hallel. Okay, it's a different discussion. The Hallel, you also have to say Hallel. Umadlikin bohen hanerois ba'erev al pischei habatim. You know what the word umadlikin means? And they light. It's a historical fact. The Rambam's not saying, going back on what he said earlier, Hiskinu. If this was one of the takanas, the Rambam should say, Ula hadlik neiros. One of the takanas was Simcha, Halal, and to light neiros. The Rambam doesn't say this is part of the enactment. The Rambam is stating a historical fact. Madlik neiros, and they lit neiros. So that's the question: is why doesn't the Rambam say Ula hadlik neiros? That one of the takanos were to light the menorah. Be'erev, in the evening, al pischei habatim, chalayla v'layla, mishmainas haleilos, laharis u'galis hanes. Okay, says the Rambam. Maybe not. V'yamim elu hein hanikram Chanukah. These days are called Chanukah. V'hein asurim behesped v'tainis kimei hapurim. These days are called Chanukah, and you're now to eulogize or fast like Purim. Says the Rambam, listen to what he says now. V'hadlakas haneros bahen mitzvah midivrei soifrim. Lighting the menorah is a mitzvah midrabanan. Kekriyas hamegillah, like lighting the Megillah. 1 second. Why is the Rambam now all of a sudden picking on hadlakas haneros? Why doesn't the Rambam say one word about Hallel and Simcha? That Hallel and Simcha and Chanukah is also a mitzvah drabanan, like lighting the Megillah. Why is the Rambam? At first, listen to this. The Rambam says, how are they koivea Chanukah? How do they establish Chanukah? They established you have to have Simcha, you have to say Hallel, and by the way, they lit candles.
I guess it's
and then the Rambam says, by the way, lighting candles is a mitzvah drabanan like Mikra Megillah. So why doesn't he talk about Hallel and Simcha?
Maybe it's not the Rabbanon, maybe it's the Oraita.
So it's not so then he should say Simcha and Hallel is also midavrei sefer.
God doesn't say that.
Maybe he said that, maybe it's not, maybe it's the Oraita. Unless it's not midivre the Chachamim and it's the Oraita.
What's the Raisa?
Hallel, the Rabbanon Shabbat.
According to the Bahagi, maybe. Hallel? So these are some of the diyukim we want to discuss this morning. We'll throw in something else. The Mishnah Berurah brings down in Siman Taf Reish Ayin Gimel. Okay, before anything, Rabbi Sai, is there a mitzvah to have a nice house?
Yes, I guess so.
If you want, I'll tell you why you should have a nice house. Hiddur mitzvah. You have to put up a mezuzah. So you have to have a nice house to put up a mezuzah. Is there a mitzvah to go to the gym and have a nice left bicep? So, it's hiddur mitzvah for the tefillin.
That's not.
No, it's good to go because
Why?
Ishmael is not.
Yeah.
It's good to be healthy.
It's good to be healthy. But let's say a guy, he never does any exercise, but he just wants to exercise his left bicep, so he has nice tefillin.
That's not allowed.
He wants to be an expert in Galila for Bereshis.
Is there a mitzvah to have a nice roof? Because since you're going to put a gate around you, what? A gate around your roof.
A market.
A market. Yeah, so maybe you should have a nice roof.
if you haven't got a roof, you can't make a mat.
So then maybe you should have a
One
nice.
slaps the other.
Maybe you should make a gold roof so that you could have a nice
They
mat.
have a gold roof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here.
In Haifa, the Baha'i religion.
Yeah.
They got
The
gold
Baha'i.
roof near Baha'i. Yeah. It's a small religion, mostly in Persia.
But also in Arabic.
Right, you see it far away. It looks like they were created that time with gold. Everything had to be gold. It shines far away.
Also
You
in
come to Haifa, you see it.
Is there a mitzvah? Is there a mitzvah to have a nice tefillin bag? Does anybody see you should have a nice tefillin bag?
Oh, it's a harder-
Not really.
Yeah.
There's no hider mitzvah. The only time you have hider mitzvah is on the chayfetz of the mitzvah, the item of the mitzvah. If the item with which you do the mitzvah, if you have an item with which you do the mitzvah, it should be nice. The tefillin should be nice.
You see?
Tashmisha mitzvah. But the din of hider mitzvah is not on tashmisha, it's on the mitzvah item itself. You should have a nice talis. But nobody says you should have a nice talis bag. You want to have a nice talis bag, go ahead, have a nice You don't find anywhere that the poskim say you should have a nice talis bag. So could someone please tell me
Same thing with the esrog.
why a beautiful esrog?
It's no esrog box. Even. The box
Do you ever
itself,
see
the
brought
box.
down in any sefer, any posik that says you should have a nice esrog box? You want to have a nice, it's okay.
Hold on a mitzvah, because you're not going to put in an old box so it's broken up.
Okay.
You buy a esrog, you might as well have it in a
Practically,
nice
it's it's a nice thing. It's an Indian, but it's not a halachic point. So could someone tell me?
People like to.
The Mishnah Berurah says that it's good to have a nice menorah. Why? Why is it good to have a nice menorah? It's not the item of the mitzvah. No, it's not.
To make the lights look better.
No.
They do mitzvah.
No, what do you mean? The candle is the mitzvah. In fact, now, listen to this. The Mishnah Berurah brings down, Kasvu HaSvarim, the Psalm writes, Shetov Kol Echad. It's proper that everyone should yatriach, he should be matriach himself. Right? He's advising, even though you don't have a nice menorah, be matriach. Go out to the store, get a nice one. Lasos lo menorah yafa. To get a nice menorah, lefi kocho. V'chein haneros yasa yafa. You should have nice candles. Now, in fact, the Chesed Li'Avram, who was the grandfather of the Chidah, brings 15 levels of hider in the menorah itself. Gold, silver, copper. Yeah? 15 levels.
But the big difference when
So tell me, should you have a nice doorpost because you put up a mezuzah? No. So you tell me a difference.
Because the menorah
Tell me
is part
any
of the
difference.
light.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No.
The big difference when
And I'll tell you more.
It enhances
Gabi.
it, but it enhances the light.
So does a nice doorpost. Does anybody even say you should have a nice mezuzah case? Doesn't say it anywhere. But it enhances it. So what do you have to have a nice... I'll tell you better. I would say it's more important to have a mezuzah case than to have a menorah. Because a mezuzah case protects the mezuzah. But a menorah... What's the halacha if you put on the first night just a candle on the table? Or the second night 2 candles? You don't even need a menorah. You're yotze the mitzvah without a menorah.
You need the fire department.
You just line it up on silver foil. You could put water all around it, like Eliyahu Bahar Carmel. Yeah, and that's it.
Maybe it's to show people that the importance it is, how important it is.
So make a big table, make a high table.
Yeah.
The chesed now, I'll just tell you. I'll tell you very interesting. No, they're not. You don't have to have a menorah.
There were times in Poland they didn't have menorah.
Didn't have menorah.
They put potatoes, potatoes and make a hole. And you will
whatever you said.
I'll tell you, it's not true.
Every situation there you something else. But
1 second. No, but the question: do you need a kli to put the neros in? The Chesed Li'Avram writes that a kli is li'ikuva. Okay, listen to this chiddush. The Chesed Li'Avram writes that a kli, if you don't have a kli just to put candles down, the Chesed Li'Avram says you're not yotzei the mitzvah, because he wants to say that the peels of wood and onions you can't be yotzei the mitzvah with, and the Avnei Nezen Siman Taf Kuf supports the psak of the Chesed Li'Avram. And he wants to say if you just stick candles onto the table, you are not yotzei the chiyuv. Now Rav Hutner says that the Chesed Li'Avram got this from the Sefer of Hilchas Chanukah from Rabbi Yitzchak Sagi Nahar, the son of the Ravid. And the son of the Ravid, all of his halachos came directly from Eliyahu Hanavi. This is printed in the Sefer Hazikaron for Rav Hutner. But in any event, the poskim don't paskin this way. Poskim don't side with the Chesed Li'Avram. If you put down 8 candles, you yotzei the mitzvah. And if that's
Who puts candles there?
no, but I'm not saying it's a nice thing. Look, everybody.
If he hasn't got anything else.
I'm saying, I have a question for you, right? Do you have to have a nice lulav box? No. But who today doesn't have one? Of course everyone has one. That's not the issue. The issue is, why is there a halachic reason to have a nice menorah?
I'll give it to you.
Yeah?
To impress upon your children the majesty of the holiday.
So get beautiful candles.
That too. Everything
It
helps.
wasn't better Mikdash, I Menorah, so you have to say
So what does the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash got to do with our menorah in our house?
the reason you light the Menorah, because what's happening in the
Okay. So now we're barking up a good tree. The Ramban in the beginning of the Halaischa wants to know that what Parsha precedes the Halaischa? Nasa. And what we're laying on Chanukah is how every Shevet brought a carbon upon the occasion of the inauguration of the Mizbeach. First, Nachshon ben Aminadab brought a carbon on the inauguration of the Mizbeach. All the Shvatim brought a carbon upon the inauguration of the Mizbeach. And who did we pick on? Which Shevet did not bring a carbon upon the occasion of the inauguration of the Mizbeach? Shevet Levi. And Chazal say Aaron HaKohen felt very bad about that. He felt bad he didn't have a share in the inauguration of the Mizbeach. So Hashem says, what are you so upset about? What you have is greater than what they have. Why? Because you light the menorah morning and evening. That's what Rashi brings down. Okay, got it? Aaron felt bad that he wasn't bringing a carbon upon the occasion of the inauguration of the Mizbeach, and Hashem said, don't feel bad. You are lighting the menorah. So the Ramban has two questions on Rashi. Number one, the Ramban wants to know, if anyway Aaron is not bringing a carbon upon the inauguration of the Mizbeach, and Hashem saying, oh, don't worry, you're lighting the menorah. Hashem could have said, don't worry, you bring the minchas chavitin every day. There were many types of services that Aaron HaKohen did every single day that Hashem could have consoled him with. Why is Hashem consoling Aaron with the avoda of the menorah? Hashem could have said, Aaron, what are you upset about? You're the only one who goes into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And also, the Ramban asks, the Ramban says he could have been menachem him with the ketairas and all the karbanos and the minchas chavitin and the avodah of Yom Kippur. So the Ramban quotes the Megillas Sasarim of the Rabbeinu Nisim, and the Megillas Sasarim says that what Hashem was telling Aaron is, don't worry, you are going to have a different Chanukah. You don't have a shiur in the Chanukah HaMizbeach, in the inauguration of the Mizbeach. You'll have a shiur in a different inauguration. What is that? An inauguration that is connected to the lighting of the menorah, which is the inauguration of the second Beis HaMikdash in the times of the Chashmonaim. Says the Ramban, look in the last paragraph over here, V'hinei. V'hinei davar yadua, it is well known, she'kishein Beis HaMikdash kayam, we no longer have a temple. V'hakarbanas betelin, we don't have sacrifices. Mimnei chorbanai, af haneros betelis. We can't light the menorah either in the Beis HaMikdash. What Hashem was telling Aaron was, you're right, when the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed, you can't light the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash, but we do still have Hadlakas HaMenorah, Shehi Noiheges, here are the key words that I want to point out. Af le'achar churban begaluseinu. The lighting of the menorah that was in the Beis HaMikdash, we could still do that today. So you say, what do you mean? I think most people would say, lighting the menorah, that's like a new takanas chachamim. This is a new rabbinic enactment that to commemorate the Chanukah miracle, we take out our candles that we get in the mail from the Tel Yeshiva, and we light the candles. No. The Ramban is saying that even though we no longer have any of the services of the temple, we can't bring karbanos, we don't have the avodah of Yom Kippur, we can't bring the ketairas, we still could do one avodah that used to be in the Beis HaMikdash, and that is lighting the menorah. In other words, the mitzvah of Hadlakas Ner HaMenorah is not a new mitzvah, it's not a new creation, it's that Hashem said, I will allow one avodah of the Beis HaMikdash to last forever. That's what the Ramban is saying, that's the way I'm reading the Ramban. Shehi noiheges af le'achar churban begaluseinu. So we have a tremendous chiddush over here. You ready for this? This chiddush is in the Sefer Yavin Das. Nahegis means it's practiced. The word minhag means a practice. But Nahegis, it's not the exact same mitzvah. You're not considered moyel behektish if you take the candle and you light it to your... but in some way, this mitzvah has a certain continuity. Rabbi Shua Mikutna, who was one of the Gedolei Yisrael, he was born in 1831, passed away in 1893. My great-great-grandfather was a student of Rabbi Shua Mikutna, and he was instrumental in the publication of his Sfarim. He was born in Plotzk, in Poland. In Plotzk. He was a Yeshuas Malkai. He says like this: If the mitzvah of lighting the menorah on Chanukah is a continuation of the avodah of the Beis HaMikdash, Bizman sheBeis HaMikdash haya kayam, would there be any reason at all to make a mitzvah that people should light the menorah? Of course not. Because if the whole purpose of the mitzvah is to allow the avodah of the Beis HaMikdash to last forever, you know what, Coca-Cola, what do they say on the bottle? The real thing. If you have the real thing, you don't need a takana to continue it, to remember it, to allow it to last, to memorialize a mitzvah that we're still doing. Says Rabbi Shua Mikutna, the mitzvah of lighting the menorah did not exist in the times that the Beis HaMikdash stood. Because we see from the Rambam that the purpose of lighting the menorah is to give a certain eternity to the avodah, the Beis HaMikdash. When there was a Beis HaMikdash, there was no need to enact a mitzvah of lighting the menorah. That is why, says Rabbi Shua Mikutna, if you look in the Gemara in Shabbos, Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, when it talks about how they were established Chanukah, they established it for Hallel, they established it for Haidah, they didn't establish it to light the menorah. What's the purpose of establishing a mitzvah of lighting the menorah when you have the real thing? Says Rabbi Shimon Kunda, in Al Anisim, we don't say a word about the menorah. You know why? You know who wrote Al Anisim? Yochanan Kohen Gadol. There are 124 words in Al Anisim, the Roikeach says. Because the 120, there's machlokes. How many words there are in Al Anisim? The Kolbai says there are 124 words. Gematria Yochanan, who wrote the Al Anisim. The Roikeach says there are 125 words. Gematria Kohanim. But in any event, Yochanan wrote it. So in the times of Yochanan, they were bekavu shmanas mechanika lahaydos ulahalel. Now, listen to very carefully. On Thursday, I heard a shiur from one of the biggest Talmidei Chachamim you'll ever find. And he said, I'm not going to say it, I'll tell you why. He said over this chiddush of Rabbi Shua Mikutna, and he said it can't be true. Because he went to a museum in Borough Park, and they found ancient artifacts of candelabras and menorahs that they were lit in the times of the second Beis HaMikdash. So it can't be true. The only problem is, he said his Rebbe always used to say over this chiddush. The only thing is, he apparently did not see it inside. Because of course, Rabbi Shua Mikutna is not saying they didn't light it. The Rambam says they lit the menorah. But the Rambam says, Umadlikin bahen haneros. They lit the menorah. But not as a mitzvah. It was the same way we play dreidel, the same way we make Hanukkah signs. They did it out of a custom. There was no formulated mitzvah. The Rambam is not saying they didn't light the menorah in the times that the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash stood. He's just saying, look at the Rambam. The Rambam's beautiful. He says, What is it? What were they masaking? Yemei simcha v'halal. By the way, the Rambam adds, it happens to be they did light candles.
Where do you get the bracha from?
Says the Rambam. So now, later on, in the times of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, when they actually enacted that there's a mitzvah to light the menorah. So you would think, says the Rambam, that maybe this mitzvah midrabanan is less than Megillah, because after all it was enacted much later on, already after the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. Says the Rambam, the level of lighting the menorah is still on par with with Mikra Megillah. It's not less just because historically it was enacted later on. So it was formulated, but not at the time of the miracle of Chanukah. Ask Rabbi Shmuel Lakuna, the Rambam in the Sefer HaMitzvah says explicitly it was enacted in the times of the Yom Tif of Chanukah. He said there are many contradictions between the Rambam and the Yad HaChazaka and the Rambam in the Sefer HaMitzvahs, but he concludes the Rambam in the Yad HaChazaka is saying that the mitzvah of lighting the menorah was a later Takanas Chachamim. It was not enacted in the times of the Yom Tov of Chanukah. But whether you like the Chiddush, you don't like the Chiddush, what we're learning from here is this a completely different appreciation for the mitzvah of Halakas Ner Chanukah. It's not, some kind of rabbinic creation. According to the Ramban, Chazal are saying that Hashem told Aaron that while the Karbanos and the Siyam are going to bring are temporary, the Hadlakas Ner Chanukah, the Hadlakas HaMenorah and the Beis HaMikdash is eternal. It's the one avodah. It's the one service that used to exist in the Beis HaMikdash that we could still do. So it's an amazing thing. When you're lighting your menorah in your house, on some way,
Even if you're not a Kohen.
your mamlaches kohanim v'goy kadosh, even if you're not a kohen, you somehow are doing avodas Beis HaMikdash on some way. We're going to bring 3 proofs to this concept that I saw. This is not my own, this point. In the Sefer Yimei Chanukah from Reb David Cohen, the Rosh Yeshiva of Chevron today. And he brings 3 proofs that the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah is not just a mitzvah, but it's actually formulated and patterned after the lighting of the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash. We know that a person's not allowed to derive benefit from the Chanukah menorah. If let's say you want to read a book and there's no lights on, Hurricane Sandy, you don't have any electricity, are you allowed to read a book to the light of the Ner Chanukah? No. Asur lehishtamesh la'ira. Why? Rashi says, because you want it to be recognizable that this is a ner of a mitzvah. And this way you'll be mefarsem the miracle when people see that you lit the candle specifically for the mitzvah. But the Ran says a different reason. The Ran says, you know why you're not allowed to get Hana from the Ner Chanukah? Because since Chazal enacted lighting the menorah patterned after the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash, and the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash you can't get benefit from, it would be mayal behektish. So too, you can't get benefit from the menorah that you light in your house, because it's like the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash. That's the reason you can't get Hana. And the Beis Halevi actually writes that according to the reason of Rashi, that the reason you're not to get Hana from the Ner Chanukah is because we want people to recognize that you lit this for a mitzvah. So we would say only you can't get benefit from it. But if your neighbor comes to your house, he could get benefit from it. Because as long as he sees that you're not deriving benefit, he'll know why you lit it. But according to the Ran, that this is like the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash, that it's like we want to pattern it after the Me'ilah of the Beis HaMikdash, that you can't derive benefit, then nobody who comes to your house could derive benefit.
So I can switch with my neighbor. If, let's say, I want to study Gemara by the light of Menorah,
you could go to
I'll go to his house, he'll go to my house.
Right, according to Rashi. But according to the... Yeah, right. But according to the Ramban, according to the Ran, since the menorah in our homes is like the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash, so you're not allowed to get benefit. Okay, another raya. Ready for another raya? We'll say this very quickly. The Ravid, in the Hasagas HaRavid in Hilchos Brachos, he points out, when do we say a bracha al, and when do we say a bracha le? So he starts off by saying that whenever the mitzvah is optional, you say al. Whenever the mitzvah is mandatory, you say le, like le haniach tefillin. Okay. So he asks, why do we say al mikra megillah? So he says, maybe you say because every mitzvah d'Rabbanan is not so strong, it's only like a rishus. So he says, if that's the case, so why do we say li hadlik ner shel Chanukah? He says in the second answer that even though it's only d'Rabbanan, because the mitzvah of lighting the menorah was patterned after lighting the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash, so it's like a d'oraisa, it's li. It's li. And one last thing, the Torah brings down, in a shul, where do we put the menorah? The south. Right? The south wall. That's east, west, north, south. We put it by the south wall, close to the Aron. And now there's machlokas in the poskim. Do you put the Neros east to west or north to south? Says the Beis Yosef. What's the machlokas based on? How the menorah was situated in the Beis HaMikdash. According to the opinion that it was east to west, we put our menorah east to west. According to the opinion it was north to south. So all of these things give us a little inkling that when we light the menorah in our homes, it's not just a new takanas chachamim. This is actually like a remnant. It's a remnant of the Beis HaMikdash. So it's the one avodah that exists after the Churban Beis HaMikdash. So we'll just add one thing. Why is it that of all the avodos in the Beis HaMikdash, the one that remains is Hadlakas Ner HaMenorah? So we mentioned by Shalshudas that we know the Gemara tells us in Chagiga, Miyom Shechar Beis HaMikdash, Ein Lo LaHakadosh Baruch Hu Ela Daled Amma Shel Halacha. When the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, the only thing that remains, so to speak, is Torah. Is the Torah. Right? Or we say in Slichos, Ha'ir HaKodesh ve'hamechuzos. The holy city of Yerushalayim, Hayu lecharpa lovizos, is disgraced, is disparaged. V'chol machamadeha, and all of her treasures. Tevuos ugenuzos, is hidden, is buried. V'ein Shiur, what remains? Rak HaTorah hazos. Only the Torah. That's the only thing that remains from the Beis HaMikdash. Now, of all the Kalim in the Beis HaMikdash, which vessel represents the Torah? Torah Sheba'al Peh, we mentioned by Shalshus, the Menorah. Harotza Sheyachkim Yadrim. You want to be smart, you go to the south, V'simanach Menorah Shebadarom. The Menorah represents the Torah Sheba'al Peh. Like we pointed out, in the Medrash we find Rav Tarfon, when he heard a good svara, he said, Kaftar v'ferach. Why kaf? Button, right? The buttons and the flowers. Why? The menorah represented the Torah Sheba'al Peh. So of all the things that remain from the Beis HaMikdash, the only thing that exists is the Torah. So therefore, of all the avodos that remain from the Beis HaMikdash, the one avodah that still remains is Hadlakas Ner HaMenorah. And I think this is a beautiful insight to the fact that when we light the menorah, we should feel that this is a remnant of avodas Beis HaMikdash.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.